all. Welcome to the participants. I'm Lesley Roberts, President of the UK AA. Today we're exploring how data-driven technology and artificial intelligence enables remote working to meet resident and investor expectations during and after COVID. It's co-presented between BuildingLink and Allsop. And I am sort of playing poacher and gamekeeper with Andrew Kraft, who leads the BuildingLink in the UK. And then Justin Dodd, who is American, but has been with us throughout COVID since, some of you just heard, since the day that travel restrictions and he decided to stay. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, London.
Leads on training and support for BuildingLink. And Dougie, Orton Wade, General Manager at Duet, which also manages, and our guest today to talk through his experiences of BuildingLink and what makes it good. I'm also going to participate in a little bit of the discussion, and I lead Allsop Lettings and Management, and by default participating in this discussion and fielding some Q&A. So please, if you're participating and you want to ask some questions, there's Q&A down the bottom. I'll look out for that, and we will try and get those questions in the next hour and a half. So over to you, Andrew. Lockdown has affected us all in different ways, shown us many things individually and collectively. The way we live, maybe work is altered forever, maybe, and how long we might live in lockdown. There's definitely been a constant from the start, and that's grown in value throughout, and that's human interaction and sense of community. And I don't think anybody can argue that the way we communicate and the platforms that we use has been integral. I mean, look at us now on Zoom. So BuildingLink for us is one of those key tools, and you're going to lead on discussions around what those topics might be that we want to discuss today.
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things. I've been watching the whole Build to Rent PRS juggernaut lurch out of the gate in the UK over the last 7 years, and it's been absolutely fascinating and thrilling to watch. I was telling Lesley earlier on, I'm very impressed with with UK AA in itself, in terms of the generosity of spirit and the information sharing and the coming together that has taken place as everybody's tried to make this thing work, and it is working, and it's been an amazing journey to watch it happen. So and obviously nobody could have predicted the kind of situation that we're in right now, and I thought it would be a good time to talk about how a platform like BuildingLink is used by the leading PRS operator, really, is also winning all of these awards in the UK and making stuff happen the way it's supposed to happen. I wanted to introduce the topic of how the platform is used to meet resident expectations on the whole in terms of build to rent and the private rental sector, but also during extraordinary times such as these, which nobody could have foreseen. And we're all remotely connected right now via this Zoom session. And I don't know when we're all going to meet again at the next UK AA Bash, hopefully soon. But for now, we're all doing things on Zoom. And BuildingLink is a platform that is for use remotely, but specifically to engender that human touch. You know, some people, when I first talk about BuildingLink, say, well, how is this going to help me with the human touch? I don't want things to be automated. I don't want people talking to a robot. And I'm quick to say that that is not what we're about. What we're about is actually freeing up management to pay much more attention to their residents, because it enables them to pay attention to the things that really matter. So in terms of today's discussion, I just wanted to introduce that topic as in a very broad sense of how BuildingLink enables people to do a stellar job at managing buildings. And Dougie's going to talk about, with great specificity, I hope, about his experiences in managing a couple of schemes. And he's going to talk about the what. And I think then Justin Dodd, as our Jedi BuildingLink support tech guru guy, can talk about the specifics of the functionality and what that enables them to do. And one of the things that I thought was fascinating that Dougie brought up when we were talking about this is the extent to which the data produced by our platform enables him to not necessarily predict, but to look at resident behavior and see how it's going to work. And that's very useful to investors, because investors need to know, well, what are residents actually doing? How are they reacting? What's their experience, like? And Dougie's been able to amass all kinds of data that is useful. And he will talk, I hope, at length about how that works with regard to meeting residents and hopefully investor expectations about how Build to Rent and PRS is working, especially during this time. So I'm gonna hand over to Dougie now and say, off you go.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I mean, just to start, first and foremost, we've all experienced different ways of working over the last few months, and as we're all aware, Build to Rent is very much about community. It's very much about people, and a lot of our service is face to face. It's real life. It's speaking to people in real terms. So, 3 months ago, we would never expected us to be in this situation. We've had to adapt quickly, and BuildingLink's really been amazing for us to take us through that process and help us communicate with our residents day in, day out in the same way that we usually would do on a face-to-face basis. We've been able to continue that, and we're so thankful that we've been able to have this technology in place so that we could continue. Once the communal areas were kind of forced to close down, we were forced to go completely contactless, which was much needed, but it's something that was forced upon us. But it was really handy for us to have this platform and this tool in place already. I mean, just first and foremost, talking about data, we could already see quite quickly that the app that BuildingLink provides, we already saw an increase in numbers of people logging in. So we could see straight away that at the end of March, we had 489 logins, which was actually about 10% more than normal. And also on top of that, we've seen an increase in people posting on the bulletin boards. So I think Justin's just about to share now the site activity overview screen, which can consolidate all of those facts and figures for you. So this is an overview, and just to show you what BuildingLink is capable of doing. It can show us in the top left corner the amount of logins that we've had. This is an example. So this would show that in the last 12 months, 12,000 logins have been achieved by residents, with 483 of those being unique logins, so different residents. We can also drill that down into the last 30 days at the top. There's an option of drilling that down further. So you can see for the last 3 months how many logins you've had and how different that's been in comparison to the previous 6 or 12 months. So it's been quite handy for us. And as I say, bulletin board postings on the site activity overview. And this is a really good example of why BuildingLink is really good for us and really useful, because we can just drill down straight away into these facts and figures quite quickly. Within 5 minutes, we can see behaviors, we can see trends very, very quickly. We could see that the bulletin boards had increased by 10% in the month of April. So more people are posting, which means more people are being active. And actually, if anything, it's helped our community in some ways come together closer, because people have actually been forced to communicate digitally, which, and we're probably all aware these days that it's becoming more and more common for people to communicate digitally rather than face to face. And the demographic of residents that we have, especially in Build to Rent, is that young demographic. We are looking at young professionals who are very, very used to social media, and everything needs to be on an app. Everything needs to be app-based. Everything's done through Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp, and BuildingLink allows you to continue that from a building perspective, and it gives you that platform to allow residents to do so. So, without BuildingLink, I genuinely don't think we would have been able to continue with the amazing service that we have done, because we just wouldn't have the facility to do so. So, one of the big things with BuildingLink is how transparent it is, both from a resident side, but also a management perspective as well, and how quickly it allows us to respond to residents. It's not, it's not a phone call. They're not waiting for an email to be responded to. It's an app, it's a message, it's a notification, which allows us because it's all on our phones and it's all, you know, directly linked to our email accounts. We get those notifications immediately, and we can keep that real communication going with the resident, and it can be quite real. And that's, I suppose, quite a good, you know, another thing to touch on really is how you can tailor that communication with BuildingLink. It's not necessarily an automated response or a predefined response. It has the ability to do that, but what it allows you to do, whether it's a maintenance request or whether it's just a sort of a question about an event that we might be holding, we can respond, and all of our team on site are trained to respond in a certain way to keep that communication quick, efficient, but most importantly, I'd say, arguably, is being real, and being speaking to like a real person, as if you would if you went to speak to someone at the front desk. BuildingLink allows you to communicate in that way, but through a digital platform. So I think that's why it's been so useful for us to see. We've got all sorts of really interesting facts that again can just be pulled from BuildingLink that can help us. It can help us when we are speaking to our clients, when we're reporting to clients, when we're assessing trends. We can look at, I suppose if you look at the maintenance reporting, for instance, we can see which days of the week that most of our maintenance requests are being logged. And we know that across the majority of the sites, it's Mondays. So we know, for instance, looking at BuildingLink in a couple of seconds, a couple of clicks, that we have the most of our maintenance requests logged on Mondays, which can help us in a different array of different ways. Most importantly, from a scheduling perspective and an expectation perspective, we can ensure that our contractor or our handyman, whichever, you know, whatever stage of the development you're in, you have someone on site on a Tuesday, because it's important, because there's maintenance issues being logged on a Monday. It also means that we can manage that expectation and ensure that the correct staffing are in on those days to respond appropriately to these issues that we may come across. So that's one, you know, real key function for us is the maintenance requesting. It's also the transparency in how quickly these maintenance requests can be responded to, because, you know, most importantly for a lot of residents is the communication. It's not necessarily about how quickly something can get fixed, although that would be ideal. We could fix everything in the next day if we could, but you know, we know that can't always happen. But what's more important is that there's a constant line of communication. And if it's through an app, which it is, resident doesn't need to speak to someone in real life. They just log it on an app. They'll get a response from one of us, a real person, to say, we're going to look into this for you. We'll keep you updated. And then it's really important that we then just keep updating those requests on a daily or bi-daily basis. So that's been really, really helpful for us, especially through this process, because as you know, as you can probably imagine, we haven't had contractors on site, and we haven't been able to deal with maintenance unless it's, you know, emergency or urgent works that needed to be completed. So it's allowed us to keep that constant communication and just respond really. But I mean, there's you know, in terms of more of the fun stuff, I suppose we've got really quickly, we've got a pet registry. We can find out how many dogs we've got on site, how many cats. We can provide this data then back to investors, and we can say, actually, how important is it for our residents to have pets, and how important is it for us to target those demographics? We can see that the Forge have 19 dogs and 11 cats. We can drill further down and see that 5 of those dogs are Pomeranians. So we know, you know, how useful this is. You know, you decide, but it has the ability to find that information out for us just in a few clicks. So yeah, I mean, that's how we've, you know, just to touch on a few things really, there's a lot more that we can go into detail about, but I think from a communication piece, it's been heavily important for us to continue in our service. And like I say, I don't think we necessarily would have been able to keep achieving the same results without that platform there. So we do feel pretty lucky to have it.
Dougie, you touched on something very interesting, which is the fact that residents get a notification, and they may not be talking to you too much through BuildingLink, but they're doing a lot of listening. in BuildingLink. So that means just the fact that they're in the loop, I think, touches upon one of the things that I've grown to understand, which is that the worst position a property manager can be in is to not know, and to be able to not respond to a resident when a resident needs to know something. More than anything, they just need to know, just, did you get my message? Are you going to get back to me? And the fact that you can send a push notification or even a tailored and personalized message is just, I'm hearing that people are just feeling a lot better in hearing those things.
Absolutely.
And another thing I wanted to touch on, in terms of functionality, one of the figures that I saw when we were looking at that slide about resident use, I also saw a number about the events. I saw 14,000 events, which is a tremendous number of packages logged. Has there been, during the COVID thing, has there been a massive uptick in package delivery?
There has actually, yeah. So we have seen an uplift in parcels. It's quite difficult because actually for that we've noticed that a little bit more in recent weeks. I suppose throughout April we actually had some really good weather actually. So people were out and about a lot more in the sunshine. But when we've seen the weather drop, we've noticed actually some increases in the parcels. I think I saw the Forge, one of our sites, are actually receiving over 100 parcels a day at the moment. Which is really, obviously it's understandable with people not being able to get out and about. But it's again, like another functionality that's very, very useful for us. Not only can we see which days of the week, which days of the week we are receiving these parcels, we can see where they're coming from. So which couriers are these, 20% generally of Amazon. I've actually seen today on the trilogies, for instance, that they've actually seen an increase in the Hermes deliveries. So Hermes has actually overtaken Amazon parcels now, which wasn't the case last year. So we're seeing these trends coming through and how important these are to people, and how actually we could probably drill down even further than that. We can go, well, actually the courier is Amazon, but we could, if we wanted to, input the place where those parcels are bought from. So we could start putting in different suppliers or different, whether it be clothing retailers or whatever that may be. That functionality would allow us to do that.
Well, and it would also allow the residents to send back stuff, because as we all know, people order stuff online, especially clothes, and if it doesn't fit, you've got to send it back, or if you don't like it, you've got to send it back. I mean, returning stuff is almost as large a component as online commerce, as delivery. So the ability to streamline that return process, I would have thought, would be helpful to your concierge. You don't want to be dumped with something from a resident saying this came from such and such, figure it out. And if it's not properly labeled, and if you can identify that. There was something else that Justin was showing. I just wanted to touch upon the imager. So for people watching who don't know what imager is, package tracking in use of mobile platforms like BuildingLink is a staple piece of functionality, and has been with us for a long time. What we're looking at here is the ability to point your phone at the label on the box and for the camera. And this is where the artificial intelligence component of the title of our webinar comes in, is that we're using OCR and AI here to recognize data on the side of a package very quickly, and to take it sees that the information and it matches it up to the data, and it sends a message to the resident, and it's much quicker than doing it on the desktop application. And it's also contactless. You can just point it at the box, click, and you're done. But on the slide before, Justin, you were showing us the amount of imager use. There we go. If we look at the difference between imager and manually recorded inbound packages, this is stunning. It's like 88% of them are automatically done. And look at how many, that we've got 95% are being done via imager. This is fantastic uptake. And I know that it's much quicker than using the desktop version. I think it takes about 2 seconds to track a package with imager, as opposed to maybe 20-30 seconds via the desktop.
Yeah.
How fast?
And it's not just quicker, but it also frees up hands, because when you've got boxes moving through, I've been to a lot of the buildings that use this technology, and I know how tight some of those quarters can be when those packages are coming through. So this frees up more room rather than having a big computer and an old-fashioned scanning gun. Now it can all be done with one hand.
So Dougie, one of the other things that you were going to talk about is resident behavior and how you've been able to extrapolate from BuildingLink data what residents are doing and what they're saying. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So there's different, I suppose there's different aspects of this really. I mean, we've already touched upon bulletin board posts. So as I mentioned earlier, there's more people that were posting through the month of April. There's more residents actually posting on the bulletin boards, which is basically a platform for the residents to use it as a forum to speak to each other or to speak to management. So we are also on there. All the management team are also on bulletin board posts. Residents are free to ask questions or make recommendations or ask for help. And actually, it was 40% of the bulletin board postings were categorized as either help needed or help being offered each other by resident to resident. So actually, there's a lot of behavior that we're seeing where residents are actively engaging with each other. It shows just there that 50%, it actually says on this one, where it's help needed or help offered. So residents are speaking to each other to find out a recommendation on where they should eat, or I don't want this piece of furniture anymore. Does anybody want it? And that is just increasing that community feel without us having to do anything. It's encouraging, it's giving the platform, and then we can see what these posts are coming out as. We can almost we can tailor that as well, because we could start off a thread, for instance. We could say, and we do have the survey function on BuildingLink, so we could actually ask a survey. But if we wanted to make this an open forum, we could start a conversation on the bulletin board that would say something along the lines of, what events would you like to see us do? If we did this event, would people like to get on board with it? So we can actually start those conversations. And again, we can assess that behavior and those trends to actually tailor what we do moving forwards. So that's been really useful for us. But as I mentioned then, the survey is also very useful. We can ask a question. It might be a multiple choice or a question we want an answer to, but we can just send that out as a notification. It can be very simple, very straightforward. And I think that's probably the key on these surveys, is because it is pretty much just one question. I know that when people are generally just emailed out a survey or a questionnaire, most people would try and ignore it if they could. But if it's just one quick question on BuildingLink, it's quite easy, and you can be clever with the question, and you can tailor that into whatever you want it to be. And like I say, you can multiple choice it if you needed to, but when it's one question, we can get a quick answer. I'm not saying that everybody will always answer it, but we'll get a decent enough proportion of the residents to answer that, so we can get a feel for what the residents are feeling on site. And we can, like I say, tailor our offering moving forwards from that. But again, it's just, I mean, that's Justin's just posted up there about some of the
These are just samples here.
Yeah, so these are sample surveys that have been created in the past, and they're just very, very useful for us, and we do use them. But also, it's very important for us to the bulletin board posts are live, because a lot of the time a resident may post and we see that it hasn't had a response necessarily, so we can then step in and we can again just engineer those responses to come through to continue.
So you're using it to sort of facilitate a sense of communication between residents. I just wondered, I know it's early days yet for schemes like the Keel and even Trilogy, but I wonder if it might be possible to draw any kind of correlation between the community spirit that is fostered, or just the community that is fostered in a building like this, and retention. Because I think I've heard it said that when people make friends in a building, they tend to stick around and they stay longer. That's certainly true in the States. There is a connection between community and retention. And I guess it's early days, but it would be interesting to see how that plays out. Have you found that you need to, I mean, it's interesting. I love the way that you're proactive in terms of engaging with the bulletin board, and rather than sitting back and just moderating it and make sure that nobody's, you know, doing something they're not supposed to do, you're actually getting back to a resident who might not have been answered and might be feeling left out. You know?
Yeah, but also it doesn't have to be for our own benefit. Some of our team on site have took it upon themselves to just go on the bulletin board and just basically send a list out of all the Netflix series that they've been watching recently. And
all
again,
the binge-worthy stuff, right?
Binge-worthy stuff, but it's coming from a real person. It's coming from one of our team members, and they're just saying they've not been asked to do this. It's just, here's some series that I've been watching. I think you'll all enjoy it. And again, it makes it more real. It just makes it like a real, genuine person that's communicating with you. So that's another good example, really, of that being real.
Yeah, thanks.
But yeah, I mean,
sorry, I was going to say, Lesley, are you getting any questions? I saw you looking down at your screen quizzically for a minute. I thought maybe she's got a question from somebody watching.
Yeah, Sebastian has asked around the ability to generate QR or barcode labels on site if residents drop mail. So if you don't have, if you know, parcels come in and they don't have a barcode, can the system generate those as a tracking?
We don't generate barcodes, but we can. Justin can speak more knowledgeably about that.
We can read the QR codes. We won't generate those on our own. But one thing that I've seen a lot of properties do is generate a handful of QR codes and place them around the building for their inspections. I think Dougie and I even explored this at one point for the building walks. So you'll make a QR code because you can get them to go to a URL or get them to type something out. So basically, you just name all your different locations, attach them to these QR codes, and then you can scan them through our app so you know when someone has been to a certain spot. All sorts of applications for QR codes.
So Sebastian, if that doesn't answer your question, just let us know and we'll ask it another way. Sorry, Andrew, keep going.
Yeah, do we have any more questions? I think we've been on the thing for a half an hour now, and I think we've got an hour. It'd be a good time to open it up if we can.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can speak to a couple of things and build on what Dougie's been saying around, you know, from my perspective, when we first launched Allsop Lettings and Management in the build to rent space, we looked at a lot of technology for what we needed, because there's no system that is comprehensive enough in every aspect to do everything that we need. And
right,
as a business, we have built several different systems that talk to each other and have interconnectivity, because at the moment there's still not a system out there that does everything. You know, Yardi does one thing really well and not another. You know, letting platforms do some parts really well, but not another. You know, because the specialisms of property management and resident engagement are so specific and they're so multifaceted, there isn't yet one system that I've found across the world that does everything that we need, that is in the realms of affordable, that makes business sense for us. So anyway, we scoured and tested a lot of systems before we decided on BuildingLink. And we still, Andrew, you may not want to hear this, but we still test new systems that come to the market, because that's really important to stay ahead of the curve and to stay on top of the curve at least. You need to keep testing your market and what it needs. And I have to say that BuildingLink has actually been for us exactly what it wanted. And, you know, Dougie and the other general managers have really taken our choice on board and really made the most of the platform. And the platform needs to, any platform that you choose needs to have the functionality more over and above everything to ensure that the people who are actually using those systems can get added value and leverage from it. So, you know, for us, it's all about the people, it's all about the community, it's about communication. But what has to underpin that is our ability to keep people and property safe. Our job is to mitigate risk for our clients and for our customers. But what BuildingLink and platforms like this do for us is that they they streamline and create efficiencies in those processes. So, you know, Dougie has the tools in his hands that he can communicate to people en masse, but he can also look at the data and the trends. He can see if there is a widget that's constantly needing replacement in a warranty period. That's like, okay, that's an issue that we need to address because there's something wrong with that product, or you know, it's not lasting like it should. And that whole analysis gives us real insight into, for our investors, but also the amount of resource and time that we have to do to manage these change outs or anything like that. So the tools, the multifaceted aspects of BuildingLink in terms of being that resident engagement platform and all the social engagement mechanisms, as well as the community activities that we can stimulate, combined with the analysis and the data tracking, is what gives us the value. And to Dougie's point, when you can see how many, and Andrew, you made the same point, when you can see how many people log in, although they may not choose to participate, the fact that they're logging in and they're listening, that in its own right is really valuable to us, because we know it's driving them to a platform and that they can use and they will use to communicate. One thing that you didn't pick up on particularly, but Dougie alluded to, was around choice. Another thing that's really important to us is that these are consumers who have a choice about everything, about whether they stay, whether they go, whether they want to engage, whether they don't, whether they want to be emailed, or whether they want to be called, or whether they want to be texted. All those things, it's really important that as a consumer, they have the freedom to be able to engage with us the way that they want to engage, and to hear from us the way that they want to hear. And in terms of GDPR, as among other things, because that's also risk mitigation for us and our clients, is that we're giving them the option to live and to engage the way that they want to. And I, as an options-based person, appreciate that I can, as a consumer, I want that flexibility, and that's really important for our customers. So, but our staff also have the ability to understand that, but also reciprocate in terms of the choices and the best way to engage with residents. So I thought the other part is around that management function. You know, our core, as I mentioned, our core function is to protect persons and property, and you know, all of the resident engagement and all of the community engagement is so important. That's why people stay there and really get so much enjoyment out of where they live. And we choose really good staff, as you can tell, who love what they do and are exceptionally good at it. But underneath that, we have a statutory obligation and a very, very serious role in looking after these big properties and the people within it. And that has come to the fore with COVID more than ever, in terms of we've had to track, you know, cases, we've had to look at all of the situations of individuals, whether they're going through illness or whether they're going through hardship or whether they're just frustrated with being at home, and responded to all of these different environments whilst also looking after the asset and our clients' interests and everything that's going on with, you know, the contractor management and the buildings themselves and all the legislation that goes with that. So these are multifaceted, quite dynamic assets and people that we look after, and the platforms that you use need to be able to add value to that rather than drag you down. And so BuildingLink's been really good for us in that sense. The only thing I would say about BuildingLink, Andrew, and you probably know I might say this, but you know, I'm all about transparency, is that it doesn't always look fantastic. The app is definitely improved. And it's the only thing that I would say that BuildingLink could probably do better for us is that it could look a bit more slick.
We've
So-
had this conversation. Yep, I'm familiar, and I'm going to trumpet this from the rooftops. We're having a massive relaunch sometime over the next couple of months with the whole architecture of the site. They've been working very hard on this behind the scenes. We know it's a big deal, especially in what the Americans call multifamily and what we call built to rent. To be able to brand your scheme, your whole sense of who you are and what you're doing has to be the ability to convey that. Is of paramount importance, and so we're working hard on doing that. I wanted to touch briefly on something that you talked about, Lesley, which is risk mitigation, and just to introduce one or two concepts that we've got coming down the pike, which I think might be interesting, which is the whole concept of buildings that are aware, not so much a smart building, but buildings that are equipped with technology that can detect activities of various sorts. And one of the things that, unfortunately, as a result of the COVID thing, is the ability to, monitor, at least, let's call it monitor social distancing by use of sensors in some of the sensors that we've got. Justin, I don't know if you've got any pictures of the of any of the sensor technology that we can share, but for example, you can put them in a gym where people, the fact that we need now to maybe treat the gym as if it were an amenity because we want to make sure that there are, not too many people in there. BuildingLink can facilitate that kind of management, but you can also use these sensors where a resident might want to know what's going on in the gym. They can actually use their Alexa Echo down here and talk to the gym and say, what's going on in the gym today? And a little sensor strapped to or attached to an exercise bike or an elliptical machine or whatever it might be. She will then say, this is available, that's available, you can use this. I think this is going to come into its own during as we move into the sort of post-COVID space and start monitoring what people are sadly calling the new normal. I hope it doesn't stay that way for long. But there's a whole bunch of sensor solutions here, and you can see by this drop-down menu that what Justin's talking about, some of these things. These are all things that we're doing. Sound sensing is an amazing thing for people that are making too much noise, or parking sensors for cars where they're not supposed to be, or elevators being used when there's a way that you can track the elevator use that stops double calling of an elevator and will reduce that has a profound effect on your bottom line in terms of things like elevator energy use. So this is the sort of direction that we're going to go in, and all of this technology is going to be around risk mitigation and being able to monitor your environment as well as the people in it to such an extent that you can make decisions. And the leak detection stuff is going to be amazing from your app. If a leak detection device detects an anomalous flow of water, let's say we know everyone's taking a shower between 7 and 9, and that the flow of gallons per second is going to be such and such. If you were to then see an anomalous flow in a pipe, you would not only get a push notification on your device, you'd be able to control the shutoff valve from your device and make that happen, or it can happen automatically. So we're really moving, we really are a database world now. And the more of this data that is being generated and collected by devices. Here's some of the leak technology stuff. The more data that's being collected, the better our ability to respond, and the more our ability to mitigate risk. Some of this you'll see there that we're talking about LoRaWAN technology. So this is all working, not even from Wi-Fi. You put a LoRaWAN gateway in a building, and sensors within sometimes miles could talk to it. So you would need one sensor in a building, and all of these sensors can be talking to it. But this is a way, we're starting to implement this in the States. We're not doing it in the UK yet, but it's something to look out for, because it's all part and parcel of the same ability to track what's going on and to mitigate risk. And this is going to be of massive interest, I would have thought, to, you know, operators in all capacities. Have we got any more questions?
No, but I've got a question for you, Andrew, actually.
Oh.
Turn the tables. So in terms of how has BuildingLink changed anything in relation to COVID? And is there anything that you've sort of seen that's come out of this that you went, oh, that's interesting, we might expand on that further in our research and development?
Difficult to say, because I haven't had a look at how it's been happening. I could probably get that information. I could find out, especially in terms of different American locations, how use of BuildingLink has maybe impacted the COVID situation, and bearing in mind that, you know, different states are opening up at different levels. And that unfortunately some of that is politicized or politically driven, so we don't really know what's going on. But I would imagine that there's going to be some collation of data to present and to share with people, to predict, you know, this is what's going on, this is how people are behaving.
I mean, it's interesting that I've been listening to a few different spaces in terms of, you know, architects and what they expect of happening in future spaces and trends. And outside of the human, you know, the value that we now recognize that is in human interaction and these spaces that we create, and how important that is to our well-being and how much we value community. That was always there, definitely in the build to rent space, but it's probably come to the fore now because people realize just how important it is. The longer lockdown goes, I think that the more acute our need for it is, because we're sort of suffering withdrawals. But interestingly, a lot of the trends coming out around now how work life has changed, and it will probably change in perpetuity in terms of understanding that working from home is infinitely possible for a lot of people, but how that whole neighborhood and localism may actually come back to being to the fore. Like in the UK, you know, we had the high streets, and then it sort of, they really suffered because big department stores and then the online world sort of grew up, and the retail spaces has sort of died. But now there seems to be, from a sort of architect's point of view, or looking at these trends that were sort of coming through, that we've basically taken a 5-year leap. Like they were coming, but we've kind of leapfrogged ourselves into a 5-year time in terms of people's habits, and are now going to sort of like, we can of course shop online, but we may go back into actually having local connections and understanding our local community, buying local, knowing our neighbors, being part of that microcosm, but having a global presence through technology. And I think that that's really interesting, how platforms like this can help, again, create those connections, but also how we can stimulate and help each other, not just in a commercial way, but one of the initiatives that Duet did was around helping their local neighborhood. Dougie, you talked about set up the like going to help people in need, doing the local rubbish pickup, all those sorts of things. They're really about giving back to the community and people having a mechanism of which they can actually contribute. And I think that that's something that we can add value, and we can use these platforms, but also that sense of community to actually create something better for ourselves.
And also to help businesses that have been impacted. There are so many small businesses that are in terrible danger of just giving up the ghost because of COVID. I think that platforms like this enable people to be a bit, you know, perhaps be cognizant of those businesses, and to, you know, to order locally from people. Like, you know, there's nothing, we're seeing some restaurants starting to open up where I am, but for the longest time they've been trying to do carry out and curbside. This is a platform when you link, through services and offers, and you link, local merchants through BuildingLink, you're able to keep people, people going.
Yeah,
And,
well, the health of your
facilitate
local economy,
survival.
the health of your local economy is going to, essentially it will make or break your business, like in terms of build to rent development. We want that local economy to thrive, and we want to be
Absolutely.
we don't want to land like an alien ship in there and ostracize everybody around it. Actually, we want to be part of the fabric, and one of the reasons that people go there, and one of the reasons people spend in those communities. So the more that we can support those local businesses and help them channel stuff through. I mean, Dougie, you might want to talk about supporting our residents in their business endeavors. I think PT and local batch coffee and fruit and veg. What's the guy who does the fruit and veg?
This is a company called Frudel. That he lives here, yeah. So we absolutely agree with all of that. We 100% want to support local businesses, and we do so. And we've got the platform again with BuildingLink. We've got the ability to advertise any local businesses and any offerings that the residents that live here with us. They might get an initial offer. They might get 10% off the first time, or 20% off, whatever that business decides to do. But the point is that we are actively trying to promote the local business side of it. We provided care packages for all our residents at the start of lockdown, where we gave, a breakfast hamper with sourdough bread and avocado, but it was all from Salford-based bakery, because we knew how difficult the times were for them. And actually, again, just touching on our demographic, the demographic of resident that we have, they're very, very bothered about that, and it's big on their agenda. It's big on their agenda to look after the local community, but also support smaller businesses alongside things like recycling and being environmentally friendly. They're all big on the agenda. So the more we can do that, the more attractive we seem for young people to get on board. We're also doing tree planting initiative, for instance, which again is a Salford-based charity, where we're actually actively going out and planting trees to kind of reduce carbon emissions. And that's, again, a massive deal for the residents. We can advertise it on BuildingLink, we can use that platform, but actually it's all local. It's all local. Everything we do is around that. The personal trainer is local, and he actually does 2 of our sites, the Trilogy and Duet. And he's an independent personal trainer. It's easy for us to go out and reach out to big corporations, but actually it's really important for us to keep that wheel turning and keeping these people in, especially through these current climates. I think it's really going to be even more important for us to keep that up.
Yeah, that's nice. Jeff's not the only person that needs to make money out of this,
No.
Yeah.
So good. Any other questions?
No, I mean, whoever's participating, I can actually see them. You're very welcome to ask questions. I guess one of the other features that we use quite a lot is our key management and the safety.
Oh yes, KeyLink. Yeah.
Of our key system. I see Phil Lambs on here from, and they have some really interesting stuff in that space as well. But one of the things that you offer that works for us is the key security system. Now, at the moment, where we have hardware keys, it's a great system. The other part of the way that keyless entry is going, particularly in relation to COVID and touchless things. I mean,
Sure.
I'm not sure what you're doing in that space, but that is for operators another area that's really interesting around keyless entry and unlocking systems and key mechanisms and those sorts of things. I don't know whether you wanted to touch on that, Andrew.
Oh, sorry. Did you touch on more of the? Well, I can explain KeyLink. KeyLink is, you can use KeyLink you can use it for storing fobs now, which is a good thing. You can get I think one or two fobs on a keyless on a key rivet. What KeyLink is it's very secure. So if Justin, if you want to put that picture up on there again, I'll just talk ever so quickly over it. So we've got this touchscreen computer that sits on top of this storage box, and you can have as many drawers as you need. And you can see it says key out there, and to the left of it, there's a little fingerprint reader. So somebody comes and consistent with the front desk permission, they require a key. So the person operating this will touch key out, and they'll type in, then they'll touch the reason that they're picking it up. They'll touch the unit that it's going out for. They'll then put their finger on the fingerprint pad, and the right drawer will blink. You'll see a blinking light on the front of the drawer there, because you can have multiple drawers. The right drawer opens up, and then the right key also begins to flash. And because the keys aren't labeled, this is what makes them secure. So whoever's handling the keys doesn't even know which key it really is, but the right key lights up. You take the key out, and instantly text messages or emails are fired off to the resident saying such and such a person took your key for such and such a reason at such and such a time. They'll be bringing it back at such and such a time, and then they bring it back. You put your finger on the pad again, and the right drawer will open up, and you can put the key back anywhere. Doesn't matter where you put it, because the system knows which key it is. And all of those key transactions are recorded in BuildingLink in multiple places. You can download all of your key link activity, and you can finesse your fields, which key was taken out, how many times in such and such a month by which person, or you can look it up on a unit profile and see every key transaction that was recorded, and the resident or whoever needs to know is getting notified. And of course, these don't just have to be used for residential keys. You can use them for keys throughout. Dougie uses it at some of his schemes. So if you want to talk about how you use keylink, that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Well, I mean, you've explained it really well, and it's exactly how we use it. It's very, very useful for us for a number of different reasons. But a big one for us, well, two big things for me is operationally. It's very easy. You know, we've all seen old school key cabinets and how keys can get lost very easily, and you have to sign a bit of paper and all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't happen. So you've got a really slick system there from an operational perspective. You know where your keys are at every single moment. And the big thing for us, of course, is security. You know, we're again looking after our residents, and a big part of that is key management. We will always know where a key is at any given time. We'll know if it's been signed out too long, or if it's due back in. And as you mentioned, a resident, more importantly, will know exactly when and who has signed a key out for their apartment. But we also use them for maintenance keys as well. So if we have contractors on site, if you have enough space in your drawer, you can create keys for maintenance, so that every single key that you have, and every time a contractor has signed that key out, you know which contractor has got it. It's also got the functionality to take a picture of that contractor or that person that signs out the key. So you've not only got their signature, but you've got the picture of them signing the key out. So you know exactly where that key is. And again, it's extremely secure. So it's just been a real big plus for us to have that system and make it so efficient.
We got a question just then from Sebastian. Hi, Sebastian. Hope you're good. About digital keys. I don't know that BuildingLink is doing this yet, but I would venture to suggest that it's coming down the pike. I know another company that they're involved with is sending out digital keys, and this is a new thing. So a resident gives a permission, and then essentially communicates with the platform that will implement a digital key. Those obviously will only work in a situation that has a lock that can be activated by a digital key. So we're getting into the IoT space here, which, to be brutally frank, is very Wild Westy at the moment. There are all kinds of people offering all kinds of solutions, none of which really talk to each other or have sort of floated to the top in terms of their ability to really, corner any aspect of the market. There are so many people coming up with all sorts of things. And for as many intercom companies as there are, like Brevo and Eagle Eye and all the rest of them, there will be as many solutions in terms of digital keys that are going to talk to those. So Sebastian, great question, but it's like I say, it's what the IoT space is very busy and Wild Westy at the moment.
Andrew, a question's come in from Kelly Smith.
Yeah.
Can you provide an overview of the Geo app and the manager dashboard, as she finds it really helpful from an operational overview?
Sorry, the question was the Geo app.
It's the Geo app and manager dashboard. So this is just when we've got portfolios, which is something else.
Right, of course. And Kelly, I will tell people, I think this is okay to say that Kelly's a super user. So that means that she's got more than one building on her Geo app, and she can log into multiple schemes from her phone and see what's going on or react to multiple situations that may or may have commonality with other buildings. So yeah, it's crucial. It means you can manage multiple situations from wherever you are. And that mobile app, by the way, is it's a proper cellular app, so you don't have to be connected to the internet via Wi-Fi or anything else. It'll work on the train.
Yeah, and from a portfolio point of view, and from someone who sort of sits above looking at this in our performance, those sorts of things are really important. So you can basically, you don't have to go down deep dive into each building every time. You can actually have an overview, and that's really essential actually when you've got bigger stock that you're trying to oversee. It's because you can see trends, and you can sort of see when something dips down, and that's when, you know, Dougie gets called. It's like, Dougie, what's going on? You've like really blown this out of the water.
So that
tell us how you're doing it.
Right. So not only have you got that bird's eye view from multiple schemes, but if you then want to zoom in on a given unit in a given building, you can do the same thing. You by looking on the quick unit lookup profile on the mobile app, you can get a whole history of what's going on, what the maintenance events might have been, what the front desk instructions might have been, what the package instructions might have been. So if you've got a resident who for any reason might be irate on a Monday morning, you can say to them, hold on one sec, I'll be right with you. And you just tap on the app, and then you can respond to them being super informed and say, yeah, I see what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And you can report to them.
Yeah,
I think what's important as well about with the Geo app is actually we can from a site perspective, we can also manage the building, but we can be anywhere in the building because the app is on our phones. So we can be managing the site from any of the units or any area or any communal space in this building, or of course outside of the building in it. As an example, you know, we use BuildingLink to sign visitors and contractors into the development. So when we are around the building, or if there was an emergency, for instance, we could be outside of the building, we'd know exactly who was inside and who we should be looking for. So there's different elements to that, but it's really, really handy for us to be anywhere inside the building or outside the building and be able to still manage it in the same way that we would do if we were in front of a computer screen. It's really, really, I mean, in this day and age especially, we're becoming more agile and needing to be around the building a lot more. So yeah, it's a really, really useful tool for us on site as well as off site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dougie, to your point, is that systems need to be as agile as our operations are and dynamic as they are, and they can't labor you to something. Actually, they have to work with you and add value to go, oh, I can just do that now. That's really important, just generally with whatever you do, and BuildingLink has definitely performed for us like that.
Yeah.
Dougie, do your maintenance people use the app as well?
Sorry, what was the question?
Does Dougie, there was a question for Dougie about whether the maintenance people, your maintenance techs or whoever's working on site, do you equip them with the app too?
They could do, but because we're currently in the 12-month warranty period, it's a different setup. So that we would manage, you know, our on-site team will manage all of our maintenance requests and maintenance schedules. So it's, I mean, in theory, then yes, it's the same thing, I suppose.
If you're in the warranty period, this is interesting too. Do you loop any of the suppliers in automatically? Because that snagging period is an interesting thing, especially I'd have thought in a rental situation, because while you may not be on the hook for a bunch of bathroom tiles that you didn't order, much less install, you still need to be in the loop about that. So the fact that you can loop that supplier or that contractor or that vendor in automatically the minute a resident submits a maintenance request, means everybody's on the same picture. So nobody's in a position to say, well, I didn't know about it, because you can then look and say, well, yeah, you did, because an email went out and you knew about it. Have you been able to use that?
It has the functionality to do that, but it's not something we use at the moment. Like I say, we still manage that side of things from a management perspective. We don't use BuildingLink to manage our contractors. Our contractors have their own systems, unfortunately, which we have to follow through. So we have to use their processes.
But what's interesting for us, and where it can help, is that when we see things like maintenance requests coming in, whether we classify them as warranty snagging, well, not generally not snagging, but either warranty or defect, or defect and then warranty, and then outside of that, but also the response times and how long things take to turn around. So that's really important for us, because our aftercare is really, and how that performs from building to building, we can see how good the contractor was in terms of their responsiveness, and whether there's a delay in sort of like resident access, or whether it's a delay in us responding to them, or whether it's a delay in the contractor being available, or a combination. That understanding the streamline of it, and where there might be hurdles or hiccups, that again allows us that analysis to know that where we can improve or what we could change. And this isn't just about trying to, get people in trouble. It's actually just trying to make everything easier for people. So if we learn that there's been delays because the contractor only wants to come back once a week to do everything at once, because it's a faff for them to drive an hour to fix something, then actually we can manage that process with residents and say, okay, we're going to get somebody here once a week or twice a week, or negotiate that with the contractor and say, look, here's the information, here's the data, here's the trends. What we want to do is we want you to have a good reputation. We don't want to have to beat you over the head with your developer. Work with us on this, find a solution. So the information creates a leverage for us to find better ways of doing things. And that's what we aim for, this constant improvement. And just while I'm on constant improvement, my conversation or mention of visual aspects wasn't actually having a go at you. It's me being transparent about what's really good with BuildingLink and what we think can be improved on, because we're always looking on how to improve things. That's part of our culture. That's what we pride ourselves on, because we want to deliver the best in class for our customers and for our clients. So these things are all about finding better ways to do things, whether it's data efficiency or process control or whatever it is. That's just the way we want to do things. And that's why, we have people like Dougie who are award-winning, developments. Best in class.
Best in class. All right. So where are we? How long have we got? I think it's 11:04 my time.
Yeah, it's 4:04 here. I mean, we've got more time, but if we don't have any more questions, I don't see the point of sticking around unless people want to ask anything more. Justin, is there anything you wanted to add to this?
Well, I did want to return to something that you mentioned earlier about how COVID has changed things already. Just a couple of quick things that we've seen that we've been able to rapidly find solutions for. First is a contactless package pickup. So I think we had mentioned signed authorizations a couple of times. It used to be that residents would sign on a signature pad sitting at the front desk when they want to pick up a package, maybe sign on the app. Of course, right now, everyone wants to go hands off. They don't want to touch anything that's not theirs. So we just came up with a quick solution that allows residents to authorize pickup of a package from their app. So they'll get that notification when they've got a package that the staff has scanned in. They can log into their app, tap authorize, and then staff knows that they can pick up this package. And then the other thing that we've seen that's sort of evolving as different regions in the states reopen is the way that buildings will use our amenities module. So maybe a building has a roof deck or a club room that they used to allow residents to book privately, right? But now other spaces such as fitness centers, and common areas that were sort of come and go as you please. Now buildings have to make sure that these things don't exceed capacity for social distancing. So they'll set up different time slots for the fitness center, leaving time in between each slot for cleaning. So then residents can log in through their app, they can book a time slot, and that way you can make sure that there's never more than 6 people in the fitness center at a time or 12 people on the rooftop.
Right.
That's
Right.
good. I mean, that sort of stuff it will also change along the lines of government guidelines. So the flexibility, the ability to monitor that and flex it over time as unlocked and evolves is really important.
And this has come from some enterprising managers, such as Dougie, who sort of finds the solutions within the existing framework. And then other things like the contactless package pickup that BuildingLink is adding on, and we're building features in response to what people need.
That's good.
Good.
Dougie, did you want to add anything?
No, I think we've pretty much covered most of the things I wanted to get across today. I mean, I probably just need to stress again how amazing this platform has been for us through the period, and how well it's allowed us to manage the situation and continue the amazing service. We didn't really touch upon events, but obviously a big part of our service is our events that we provide on site. So having a calendar of events just on your phone, just to see, there's a quiz tonight that we can just join on, and we can accept that, and we can plan as well. We can plan the event thoroughly, but we also can collect that data afterwards to see how many people have attended, what night of the week works, how many, if we do it on a Tuesday, we get more people attending on a Thursday. It's that kind of data that it's worked for us really well now, but actually going forward, it's just as important for us to plan around and actually just meet the customer's needs. So that was just one other point that I wanted to touch on, that it's really, really useful for.
Yeah, thanks.
Andrew, anything you want to add?
No, other than really just to say thanks everybody so much for showing up for today, and for all of the hard work that you've put into this, and for your candor, and for your insights, and for your exuberance, and for your generosity. This has been really good, and thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, UKAA, for asking us to do it, and thank you to everybody at Allsop for being stalwart and Jedi users of the platform, which is very gratifying to see. It really is. So that's all I've got to say. Thanks, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for participating. On behalf, thanks, Dougie, for coming in and giving your contribution from Allsop and from UKAA. And Andrew, Justin, thank you so much from the UKA's perspective. Thank you to the guys who organised it from the UK, and to all the participants. We did record this, so now that we've passed the test, I think we'll make it available. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
No swearing, no big faux pas.
Right? None of that. Amazing from me that I was able to.
No hot mics.
No bleeps.
All right.
Thank you so much. And
all right, guys.
And
Talk later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.